He will set us free. The Creator lied to us. There's many messages within the hallowed halls of Bendy's walls. Ink hastily smeared upon wood, depicting a message of fear and hate, of loss and sadness. We see these words as we travel through the studio. They act as warnings of the ink demon further ahead. But let me ask you this. Have you thought about the stories these messages tell? Is there more going on than just an ink demon on the loose? For the first 3 chapters, we didn't have an answer to that question. Only speculation and possibilities. But with the release of Chapter 4, new emotion has been breathed back into these dried markings on the walls. And combined, they create a message you may not have realized was in front of you from the very beginning. These scrawlings tell more than just the story of Bendy. They tie into a larger idea, an often passed over thought. So join me on a journey of sorrow, through a story of stains that will never go away, no matter what Billy Mays might say. The true message of Bendy and the Ink Machine doesn't come from Bendy or Alice or any main character, but from the people who wrote these warnings for us to find. Get ready to tie this game into our everyday lives and become familiar with an everyday theme of life itself. So let us venture forward together and bring forth a horrifying yet beautiful idea within Bendy and the Ink Machine. An idea that, once you understand it, will open your eyes not just to this game, but your own mind. Hit it! Those are some pretty big claims I set up in that intro, and believe me, I don't intend to disappoint. But before we get down into the nitty-gritty of the Bendy City, I'd like to thank this video sponsor, Amino! Whether you're into older classic indie games like Undertale, or the newer stuff like Doki Doki Literature Club, there's a community or 10 on Amino for you. It's a completely free app that has communities for every franchise you can think of. Every Amino is a little different, shaped by the people in it. The Bendy Amino, for example, is pretty heavy into theorizing, so if you need your fix between Treesicle episodes, you know where to go. So try it out! Find me under Treesicle on the Bendy Amino, Doki Doki, or FNAF, any of these. The link is in the description. Start hanging out and finding your community today. And don't forget to say hi. Now back to it. Bendy and the Ink Machine is one hell of a puzzling game. We've been uncertain of what exactly is going on throughout the story the entire time. At first, all we knew was that this printer made an ink monster who wants to kill us. And that was really the whole game up until Chapter 4. But there's more to the story now. More characters, more happenings, more casualties. I'm mostly speaking of the Ink people, the community of living ink that we find crowded into a single room despite sharing a studio that seems to go on and on forever. But prior to Chapter 4, we only knew about cartoons that came to life through the ink. We speculated that these monsters, specifically Alice Angel, were actually people from the studio, people that we heard on the tapes throughout the game. Now we have definitive proof of that concept with the appearance of Good Alice. But Bad Alice, Susie Campbell that is, may actually have told us more than we could have possibly realized before Chapter 4. We merely needed this new chapter to put her words into context, but we'll get to her words in a minute. This chapter introduces us to the Ink people, a room full of employees, scared, lonely, innocents who have been taken by the ink and changed into living ink monstrosities. You can not only see, but feel the difference in these people from the more cartoonish entities like Bendy or Alice. It's a palpable difference. They are sad, scared, and some seem to be slowly losing their minds. Some seem to have lost all hope. These people are the untold stories of Bendy and the Ink Machine. The people who got caught in the middle, who lost their lives and their humanity to the ink. But there's something about them that no one has talked about as of yet. We touched on it in Ryan's Real Truth, but no one has done a deep dive into the collective consciousness that comes with being taken over by the ink. In case you're unsure what I'm referring to, let's rewind for a minute and play a clip from Chapter 3, when Alice goes into her monologue.
It could have touched me. It could have pulled me back.
Do you know what it's like, living in the dark puddles?
It's a buzzing, screaming well of voices.
Bits of your mind swimming like fish in a bowl.
As I said, Ryan touched on this strange collective consciousness that was created from the ink, but I think we're seeing a lot of people gloss over it and not give enough thought to what it means when paired with Alice's words. Imagine there was a voice in your head that cried and screamed over and over again, and you couldn't turn it off. Imagine there are multiple voices, crying, screaming, and you can't tune them out. They are in your brain, a part of your mind. That's what Alice is describing here, and that's what is happening to these ink people. They are part of a collective consciousness that is bound by negativity, and possibly by Bendy. Yes, it's possible that Bendy actually controls the emotions within this ink consciousness. I only say this because of another one of Alice's lines during this monologue.
I will not let the demon touch me again.
This is vital to understanding the collective consciousness. Alice was born from the ink twice. Once was terrible, the second time was wonderful. Why? What was the difference between those two births? The last sentence gives us our answer. I will not let the ink demon touch me again. This must refer to Bendy, meaning that Bendy somehow had control of the ink. Otherwise, why even bring him up while talking about it? Her line lets us infer that the difference between her first birth and her second somehow has something to do with Bendy. This is a clue to understanding what is actually happening with the ink people. Couple that idea with Alice's disgust of the Butcher Gang's ink. She specifically says that it could pull her back to him, to being a shapeless slug in the ink collective consciousness. His ink is like an infection. She's terrified that it will get into her new, beautiful, separated form, and put her under his influence, relinking Alice to the horribleness of the collective ink mind. I think this likely explains why Bendy took the projectionist's body. He wanted to merge it with his ink to gain influence over the projectionist. He wants all the ink to be merged with his, to be under his control. And that brings us to the people within this room, the other employees. The people who live within the ink's collective consciousness. Just to look at these people, they cannot form a, let's call it a unique thought, like that of Bendy or Alice. They are constantly in useless turmoil, unable to be who they once were. We can't talk to them, we can't interact with them. They merely look at us with those glowing eyes as we pass through. These people are extremely unhappy, and their unhappiness is actively breeding more despair in themselves and those around them. Remember, this is a collective consciousness. Each ink person can feel the sadness in the others. Emotions are contagious, just like in everyday life. If I'm around someone who is upset or sad, I'm much more likely to feel those emotions, even if I don't have anything to be upset about. It's a medically documented fact. People tend to mimic the emotional expressions of those around them, and in many cases actually feel the same feelings simply by exposure to those emotions. So if I'm hanging out with Ryan, for example, I'm more likely to be a loud, goofy teddy bear than normal, while he's more likely to have an existential crisis as we mimic each other's emotions. But it goes much further than that when you have something like a collective consciousness. And while we can't possibly understand what it must be like to hear every thought of a dozen other people all at the same time, we do have something at least comparable when you think about it. Our own internet comment sections and forums in some ways actually come close to a collective consciousness. Let me explain how. Think about those stranger circle-jerky parts of the internet like r/incel, the politics board on 4chan, or the more social justice warrior-y parts of Tumblr, or any other place on the internet where every single post is just a continuing agreement with every post before it. These places are essentially circle jerks. One emotion, one thought, circling over hundreds to thousands of different people, being repeated over and over in different ways and words until the people who frequent the site are essentially interchangeable in their thoughts. They are echo chambers, bouncing anger back and forth between them, making them more angry as more and more people agree with them. It creates almost a heightened mob mentality because everyone is validating the feelings of everyone else. Creating this group persona based solely around one idea or few concepts. It's a sounding board for anger, hate, rage, sadness that only gets magnified as more voices are added to it. That is what it's like to be part of the ink consciousness. These people are mentally linked together through the ink. Day in and day out, they hear every sad thought, every fear, and every worry from all the other ink people. It's no wonder these ink people are just huddled together doing nothing, trying not to escape. Crying, staring vacantly at nothing. It's all I would be able to do just to handle that many people crying out for help in my head. It would make me feel helpless mentally, and these people all lost their bodies to the ink. They're in a horrible position, stuck hiding, just trying to stay alive. It's within these people we will find our message, the hidden meaning within the game. Their position, their influence by Bendy, it's all a metaphor pertaining to our actual society and the effect massive negativity from one person can have. When we allow one person who spreads such negativity, dismay, and hate to control a group of people, it's not uncommon for everyone to be tainted by that negativity. We mimic emotions. We feel the emotions we see, and if we're constantly seeing negative thoughts, hearing negative comments, we're eventually going to be spewing the same ink from our mouths. You see it everywhere on the internet. One comment of hate leads to another, and before long, a discussion has turned completely into one side trying to hurt the other as much as possible. It's not right. But it's exactly what happens when you get surrounded by so much anger and hate. These ink people represent this within our own society. The people who have lost themselves to our collective societal consciousness. The people who go from negative thought to negative thought to negative thought without even realizing that's what their life consists of. But just like these ink people, we have the ability to change, to become untainted, to be rebirthed like Alice was. But unlike her, we can come back with true beauty. The beauty that comes from not engaging in the collective negative that parts of our society constantly try to feed us. Our bendies are everywhere. They can be the online boards we visit, our friends, or even family, the media, anyone who is constantly trying to bring us down. Don't let them control your life. Don't let them drag you back into that collective negativity. You have the ability to be free from it, to be your own ink instead of being a part of Bendy's. When you do, when you think for yourself instead of taking in others' words and spewing them back out in a different order, you'll find that no one will be able to break the peace that flows through your mind. That's the message within Bendy and the Ink Machine. The meaning behind the collective consciousness and the inky puddles that it emerged from. Be who you are and what you believe, and don't fall victim to the constant downers who are trying to break in from all sides. You control your emotions and who can and can't share your ink. Take care when you decide who is worthy of it. And while you're deciding who is and isn't worthy of your inky goodness, I can tell you one of the best places to look for welcoming and amazing communities. Amino! If you're interested in awesome gaming communities, you should definitely check it out. And don't forget to find me under Treesicle in any of these aminos. And thanks so much to Amino for sponsoring this video. It's sponsors like them that allow us to do what we do and keep making the content you guys love. So support them and you'll be sending us some love in the process. Thanks so much, guys. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye!